welcome to another episode of Legal for Tech, the podcast. So, guys, you do recognize my voice. It's always Rosie here. And as I've said many times, this is just for students and young professionals who are very interested in technology and, yes, its regulation. So, today I'm joined by my colleague and friend, Giacomo Modio. Today, hello. I can't hear you, Giacomo. It's so sad. This is making me
No,
sad.
my fault. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
I just said happy to be here again and again and again.
It's true. It's true. Guys, we have to let you know we're almost at 100. So, like, a big surprise is coming up, but not as big as the surprise we have today. Under the Christmas tree, coming and calling us from a slightly hotter, I guess, Australia, is Elyas Meguellati. Hello, Elias.
Hello, how are you guys?
It's great to see you. I'm wondering what time is it there? It's been a question that's been bothering me for a bit.
It's 10:20 Tuesday, 10:20 p.m.
I wouldn't be able, they know, because I go to bed really early. Everyone knows that. So I wouldn't be able to take that call. So you have all my respect. It's not 10 p.m. here. It's, I guess, 1:20. So still p.m., but not that late. And we want to know everything about your career, Elias, but most importantly, what led you to this great paper that I've read online and I really want to know more about.
Well, thank you for asking. I am wrapping up my PhD in natural language processing and generative AI. I started my journey in computer science after my high school degree, where I did math and computer science in general. And then it was around 2015, 2018, and it was like a big thing where I started to be more noticeable. So I did my master's in AI. It was computer vision and natural language processing. And during that time, there were a lot of breakthroughs in terms of, uh, for example, there were transformers, and they were like a big thing in NLP. So we decided to ride the wave and do a thesis in natural language processing. It was something called location metonymy resolution. So sometimes the chat, the machine learning model or whatever cannot distinguish real locations from uh, metonymic locations, which are like a figurative speech. For example, if you say Brazil wins, Brazil is not the country, it's the football team. So 1 out of 5 is always a location metonymy, but the model, whichever it is, for example, a classifier or a translator, will always or almost always get it wrong. So that was the first step where we try to kind of have something to make AI learn to distinguish between figurative speech and uh, real or literal speech. And from that, I did my PhD, and it was going towards that area. And before I started my PhD, 2 months before that, ChatGPT was released, and it just disrupted the entire thing. So we rearranged everything. The uh, the PhD posting that I was supposed to be working on was rearranged. So it was called Customer Data Stories, and it was supposed to be using something called GAN, like adversarial networks. So it's something to do with text generation, but then you get something that can actually do even better. So we were like, we don't have to solve that problem. It was already solved before I started my PhD, and we wanted to explore how these things can be. Uh, we want to explore the effectiveness of these things, like the large language models in general. So the question became, what can be a first step? Because there are a lot of things that uh, are like ethics related. So if, let's say, you want to do something in the healthcare domain, it's going to be really hard because the technology is really new and people will be skeptical about implementing it. But ads are everywhere, so that's how we started doing like LLMs and ads.
So let's go with the next question, because I was very interested in a paper recently read that you published with a team of colleagues centered on the topic of advertisement in the age of AI. How did you come up with this idea of researching in this field?
Um, so if you look at it retrospectively, um, so I did my master's during like around 2018, 2020, and in 2016 there was this Cambridge Analytica thing that happened, and mass targeting and all that stuff. So things just add up. Like you can use LLMs to generate text, and if you can generate text to every individual, and it's not literally, but almost for free. So if you scale it up, you're going to be able to not just mass target, but individually mass target people as if it's like DNA curated for them. So if it's that powerful, we wanted to know if if it can be that powerful, what's going to be the implications for that?
I love how basically you are the example of someone whose life has been literally disrupted by LLMs, but in a different way. So I absolutely adore this. Let's talk about the paper. I think it's very interesting how you explained, we started off with the kind of like easily accessible and less controversial stuff, so advertisement, to then open up to ethical questions to the rest of the uses of LLMs and AI, of course. And I wanted to ask you, in terms of writing process and of methodology, what processes did you prefer? Which ones did you not consider? Would you have changed something in the method you use? Because let's remember, like, this is a scientific paper. So the method is particularly important to the understanding of the conclusions, which are potentially also having an impact upon everyone's life, right?
Yes, that is very true. And um, yeah, so I did, let's just start from where I can give you some context. I did machine learning NLP in my master's degree. And then when I started with my PhD, my supervisor, Gianluca De Martini, he's uh, famous in doing crowdsourcing and human-computer interaction. So I switched from algorithms and like GPU and stuff like that to humans being in the loop. The methodology was rigorous, but the problem was that it was rigid. So there were two studies in the paper that you're mentioning. The first one was actually very early. It was like the first half of 2023. It was published in as a short paper in ACM, the Web Conference 2024. And because it was my first time doing HCI, I had this problem where the reviewers were asking about more experiments, but it was not possible to add more experiments because there's this factor of bias. So you have participants, they saw ads of different traits. If you want to add another trait, you have to redo everything from the start. So it was not possible to do that. So that was like lesson learned. Number one, you have to not just have a methodically strong way to do things, but you also have to think about being flexible to implement more ideas.
I really do think this is an important point, because I feel like sometimes we think, okay, it's all kind of like, it's all computers. Everything you want to do will be possible by definition because it's all there. It's in the box potentially. I mean, I know this is terribly wrong from your perspective, but that's how the average person probably thinks. Okay, like they can run infinite experiments on this thing because it's not, you don't have to pay actual people and stuff like this. This is the view, and instead it's not possible. In terms of conclusions, let's divide up the type of conclusions you reached in the paper in, let's say, two categories, and I'm gonna ask you to help me figure out which one goes where. So there's a a set of conclusions is very technical, I would say. And then there's a set of conclusions that are probably like more inferences, the ideas that come as a result of the technical findings. So could you help us classify what you came out with and maybe give us both the technical side and the human systems and society kind of version?
Okay. So let's imagine it's a 2 by 2 matrix to make things easy. So the first thing was study number one. Study number one was the early study where the methodology was good but rigid. And in that study, we tried to measure how uh, LLMs can personalize messages. So LLMs know your personality, and from that, they generate text that is tailored to that specific personality. And we used two traits, openness and neuroticism. They are not against each other, but they are like both of them are like on the other end of the spectrum. So it's not like openness and extrovert. If you're extrovert and open, they overlap a lot. You cannot see the difference. So if you personalize these two, you're not sure if there was personalization or it's like both. But these two are a little bit far from each other, so you can see the different ways of writing style. The the openness trait, people with openness trait, they responded well to the AI generated messages as opposed to standard messages, meaning that there is some personalization. We have the p-values as scientists, where like if it's less than 5%, you're good to go. If not, you have to do more or push it a little. So we had this confirmation that uh, it indeed personalizes the messages for a specific personality. But then when we measured against ad designers for the same personality, there was no statistical significance, meaning that LLMs in 2023 were as good as an ad designer. And the key takeaway from that is that if an LLM can do the same thing as an ad designer in like generating uh, taglines for different personalities, then it will be questionable what they can do on a larger scale. So that was study number one. Study number two was like 18 months later, where the motivation of study two was number one, study one is about personality. That means you need to know the personality of that person, meaning you need to have data about them, meaning there's a privacy issue. Number two is we never incorporated images. At first, those LLMs did not generate images, but then they started generating images which were very lousy and bad. But at some point, even the images became so good. So we had these two new dimensions, which are you don't want to use the data because you don't want it will be increasingly hard to ask participants to disclose what personality they are or to ask them to fill up a survey to determine what personality they have. So you get rid of that. And number two is you include now the visual aspect of it. So that was study number two. So it was not about personalization. It was about pure persuasion. We just prompted LLM to, hey, persuade this person, and then you ask it like which condition, because there are like classic ways from Cialdini, the persuasion guy, and one of them, like for example, consensus or scarcity. Scarcity is like you trigger the hey, limited time only, you have to buy it, so you feel like you want to buy before it runs out and stuff like that. So study number two was an extension of study number one, but the advancement of LLM made it that LLMs were not even close to humans' performance. They exceeded it by far. And even that if they identified that the ad was AI, because it was so good, it did not matter. Even if you don't like AI, the ad was so good that even if we penalize the performance of the ad because it was AI, AI still got it better. So it was somewhere around 59% to 41. And if they knew it was AI and we penalize that, it's still like over 50%. So even if you know it's AI, the execution, like it's resilient to the bias of AI. And the takeaway from study 2 was very interesting because we had these two categories. We have uh, Gen Z and we have boomers. That's how we called them in the paper. So Gen Z are actually good at identifying AI. So they know that the ad is AI, but they don't care. They are fine with that. And boomers, they don't like the ad was AI, but the ad was so good that they think it's human. So they ended up choosing AI too. So it's like it doesn't matter the origin anymore. If the ad is good, if you don't know if it's AI, you will think it's human and you will choose it. If you know it's AI, that means you're like likely a Gen Z and you don't care if it's AI because we're growing up with AI. So this is the main takeaway from study number 2. That means you don't even need data. You have the visual aspect, which can be done from like diffusion models like Midjourney, and you can ask GPT or Claude or whatever to just be persuasive.
At this point, can I ask you something? Let's say two questions. The first one, were you satisfied with the results that you get? And the other part, it's more related on how the LLM is able to build the personality of a person at this point. You said, okay, it needs data, of course, that's pretty clear. But how technically it works?
So for the first question, I also have two answers. Answer number one, if the persuasion is good, you have a good paper. But if the persuasion is bad, you feel safe. So you either, yeah, I mean it's true. Like for me, I always argue that I don't really care about the results as much as what the outcome is, regardless, as long as it is valid, it is still precious for other people to look at it. But some reviewers, some venues, they want to see interesting things. So in terms of interesting, if LLMs exceed human, you have a good paper to be published. But safety-wise, there are a lot of questions to be asked. And number two, about the personalization, we actually did a post survey. We didn't, because we tried at first to build something from, uh, yeah, so everything came together. I remember when we wanted to scrape some users' uh, posts from social media suddenly stopped doing these API things. They closed it. Like if you want API, you need to pay for it. It literally happened on February, the month after I started my PhD on January. So there was no chance to kind of collect data to train a model to actually identify a person's personality. So we went to the other resort, which is we just asked participants some big five questionnaire to kind of categorize them, and then we show them the ad that corresponds to their personality. But I think there are a lot of models there like IBM and Microsoft where they can just from 3,000 words can determine what personality you are.
I have a question that maybe can be a tiny bit political, so feel free to take your time to answer. I was reading a couple of days ago that Meta has implemented a new advertising model. It's called GEM, Generative Advertising Model, literally. And basically, it works with a huge amount of parameters, something like 3 billion or something. And they infer information about users, not necessarily personal information, because they don't necessarily need to lead it back to the single user, of course. But let's say they create a number. I'm obviously, we don't know in detail how it works, so I'm speculating. Let's say it creates a number of personalities. And then this model is also able to prompt another model, a generative AI model, to create advertisement. So to generate a form, for example, a video or a short or a reel even, and that's how the model works. So do you think that a person, say me, who has had Instagram since she was 15, so that's at least 10 years, has had all their life on Instagram, say, and then this model comes into light and is able to put together a lot of information about myself and other related users, and then to generate I would say, successful ad campaign. Do you think that I would be in the position of still choosing whether to like it or not, whether to fulfill the ask of the advertisement campaign or not? Or would you say like the level of information that that profile has of me has reached the point that I lose the ability to actually think straight and understand that that's just a proposal, not a road that's already been built for me?
Um, so this is all under the umbrella of persuasion. And what is persuasion? Persuasion is the subtle way to influence someone. So the keyword is subtle. And to diffuse the persuasive effect, you just need to know that you are being persuaded. Just like, so for example, scarcity is something that people actually are now resilient to. If you say limited time only, they're not going to buy it. They've already fallen into that trap for many times that it doesn't work on them anymore. So if you are aware that you're being targeted and persuaded, even if even if the reel or the video is tailored to you after 10 years of using Instagram, you are still aware that it is an attempt to persuade you to do something or to nudge you towards something. And that in itself is I think it's my opinion that you can be resilient just because it's like when someone's lying and you know they're lying. And if someone's lying and you just don't know. If you don't know, you are going to actually believe them. But if you know they're lying, you're still going to choose to do either to go with the flow or to actually go the opposite way. So it's kind of like the same.
Yes, and I agree with you, but like as you said, people don't care whether something is AI generated or not. And I think you still believe that there's probably a human being behind it, guiding the AI. So you think of an advertisement campaign right now, that would be probably someone that directs the video. And you think, okay, instead of hiring actors, they just direct the video, prompting it within a generative AI model, say. And the idea of having instead another um, tool that tells a tool how to direct a specific piece of advertisement directly to you. Do you think that people really know that that's happening, therefore they can unmask the persuasion? Or do you think that the majority of people would not be aware of all of this mechanism, for example?
Well, apparently the answer is already obvious that we would not know unless they have the moral ground to actually flag that this is persuasive, which is what we are trying to do because half of my PhD is called it's a persuasion detection. So we actually detect persuasion in political campaigns because they tap into some human weaknesses to target you or nudge you towards doing something or adopt something that you might not have adopted unless you saw that ad. So to answer your question, I do not really know if so two scenarios. Scenario number one, if it's like a reel that is not labeled as sponsored, but it was picked by them, then that is really dangerous because you don't know that that is an ad. But if it's sponsored, for me, when I see sponsored, I just like swipe. I don't even care to continue watching that sponsored reel, even if it's tailored to me. So in that way, yes, you can diffuse the persuasive content. But if it's not actually labeled as sponsored, but it's targeting you, that can be dangerous. So uh, we need to have or to implement safeguards or at least hold those people who actually do that accountable when they do something like that?
Um, from a technical perspective, you said you've studied all of kind of like the technical side behind where we come from a legal background, as our listeners know. Um, from a legal perspective, I could say, okay, then we need to regulate these people and we need to make sure that they always show AI generated or like created through this type of technology. Say, like we can add labels. The AA Act calls for adding labels, for example. From a technical perspective, would there be a ground for one of these companies to say, we can't do more than that? We can't stop you being kind of prone to persuasion, say? Or is that something that can technically be implemented to avoid that the level of persuasion goes towards surveillance and control and more towards nudging?
So from a technical point of view, you can develop an extension, for example, in your browser that that can flag if the text or the image is persuasive. So it's like more of an individual or a group initiative. So it's not the company itself, because the company does that because that's how they get their money. Because Facebook is free. How? Because they have ads. So if you deprive them for the very source that they are making money from, they're not going to be happy. Uh, so the thing that you can do is to actually uh, have that initiative to, for example, install an extension, or, for example, now we have some people that in our university in the Department of Humanities, they have something called data donation. So they give us a screen recording of what they see, and we just filter out only the sponsored ads to see how they target people. For example, people who are like alcoholic, and how they tap into the weaknesses of people who have a problem with alcohol, and how they like increasingly in a subtle way show ads about alcohol for them to buy alcohol. So we have these measures where it's still in early stage, where you have people who are downloading our app from Google Store or App Store and kind of show us what they see on Instagram for us to understand how these persuasive techniques are being implemented. So it's still early stage as in the bigger picture. But if you have like something like an ad and you ask a model to say if it's persuasive or not, that's already good. Like the accuracy is good, like around 90%. So if someone were to just build an extension and add it to your browser, and when you browse things, it just tells you like labeled something like, hey, this might have loaded language, or hey, this has this technique of this persuasive techniques, that might be a good thing if you don't know that you're being persuaded.
Okay, so there are techniques, there's research, we're still at early stages. Let's talk about the last, and I swear it's the last question. And I'm going to ask Giacomo to help me ask this question because Giacomo knows that I'm very happy to celebrate a specific festivity that's coming up. Right, Giacomo? It's I'm very happy to celebrate Christmas. It's my big moment. Um, and I want to ask you before Christmas comes, say that next Christmas we decide to do our Christmas shopping in a totally different way. So more people that are already using LLMs, because we know that a lot of people are using LLMs, decide to turn to LLMs and to, let's say, ask for assistance. Are LLMs as prone as people to believe to LLM generated ads? Because this is a question that I've been asking myself. If I can't unveil the persuasion, can an LLM do that for me?
Um, Based on our experiments, I'm not going to say it depends like a prestigious scientist. I will just say no. They are not that good, actually. They are really bad, especially if it's something that is multi-label. So if it's a yes or no, mm, there's still a good chance that they can do that. But if you actually want this, for example, if you ask the LLM what persuasive technique is there in that thing, they will literally just throw anything at you and but the right answer. So in terms of LLMs, knowing if there is a persuasive generated content from LLM or human, regardless of the source, they are still bad at that because the origin, like the capability of the LLM, is to generate text, not to classify. That's its strength. So if you can rephrase it in a way that if you ask an LLM to explain why this ad is effective, you might have a good chance to kind of like it can clue you in without actually giving you the answer, as opposed to just asking it to say, "Hey, if is this persuasive or not?" So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but yeah.
I think it really does because I've heard more than one person saying like, I can't make a decision. There's too much to go around. There's too much noise around the product that in the end I feel like I'm lost and maybe I can ask, a chat GPT or Meta AI or Gemini of the sort, please can you find a solution for me? And if you say like, persuasion interests basically everyone in their own way and according to their own taste, the risk is that that's not going to help you. You're just going to potentially buy what's more persuasive to the LM rather than what's more persuasive to you. So I would be quite careful, especially next Christmas, and especially considering my ability to buy bad shoes, which is, yeah, an issue, as the listeners know, because I'm constantly talking about shoes as well. So yeah, right. Then I'm gonna ask you the very last question, which is just what we ask everyone. Are you gonna read something during this Christmas? Are you gonna listen to podcasts? Would you have a suggestion for our listeners?
Um, Yeah, I usually tend to listen or read something that is out of my niche because that's what you do when you're like computer science, reading papers about computer science, you get bored of that. So I usually like to read papers that are more about economy in general. So one paper that I one book that I read recently is by Nassim Taleb called Skin in the Game. Yeah, I love that guy. Fooled by Randomness, The Black Swan. So, yeah, I like Nassim Taleb's way of seeing things. So maybe niche in the game is a good way to look at things. Skin in the game, not niche in the game. Skin in the game.
Get in the game, right? Our listeners will find the link to this book or potentially just the title in our show notes. Yeah, I know. Well, we can't suggest the best marketplace to buy the book from because that would be advertising for them.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah. Thank you very much, Elyas. This was a pleasure to meet you. We wish you all the
Likewise.
best. Thank you.
Thank you to you as well. Have a good
And
day.
you too. Have a good night.
This episode was brought to you in partnership with DG Beetle. DG Beetle helps privacy professionals to stay up to date with the most important European documents in the AI, data and digital space every day. Curious to know more? Check out the link in our show notes.